you'll see composers on the road, people like Christian Henson, Guy Ritchie, Guy Ritchie, Guy Mitchell. Sorry about that. Hello, it's Darren from Moonhare Studio, and the question I get asked most on this channel is, should I buy a MIDI control surface, and if so, which one? So let's delve into that particular minefield. So before I start, I just want to make it absolutely clear that I am not in any way affiliated to manufacturers of MIDI control surfaces. So I don't collect any affiliate links or any kind of payments from these manufacturers. So these are my opinions, and as such, you can take or leave them. So let's start off with question 1. Surface. Well, perfectly honest answer is no, you don't need a MIDI control surface to make music, and you will see a great number of people online doing tutorials about composing even large-scale orchestral scores using nothing more than a keyboard and a mouse. DAWs are essential to your recording if you're going to go down the computer route rather than the hardware route of a Porta Studio or something like that. But they're all designed to be used with keyboard shortcuts and mice in mind. The MIDI control surface is a bolt-on added extra, and certainly when you're starting out and you've got a limited budget, I'd suggest that's one of the last things you're going to get after your sound card, your headphones and a microphone for recording acoustically, and then potentially your studio monitors at that stage. So please don't expect to have to buy one of these to be able to make good recordings, because it's simply not the case. Well, this is really going to depend on your personal choice and your circumstances. For a start, you've got to think about the cost of the unit. So small Nano Control 2, for instance, is only going to set you back £45, dollars, euros, whatever, whereas say a brand new UF8 from SSL might be close to £1,000 or dollars. So you've got to make those decisions really, and of course there's going to be something of a learning curve in using the piece of equipment and also installing it and getting it running, you know, smoothly in your DAW. Those are not insurmountable because obviously they're designed to be easily used, but you will find some good tutorials online. Some of them are on this channel, just talking you through that process if the manual isn't quite up to scratch. Studio space is one thing to think about. I mean, how much space have you got on your desk for a unit like this? A Qcon, for instance, takes up quite a bit of space, especially if you start to add extenders. Obviously a little unit like the Nano doesn't, and that can be fitted almost anywhere. So do think about that, especially if you're on the road with a laptop. You're not going to want to lug around a massive great piece of kit that you've got to plug into a, an actual power supply. And finally, I suppose, really think about how much you do with the mouse and the keyboard, and how much of that is easily replicated on the control surface you're looking at. Because if you can't easily get to the majority of the controls that you normally use using a control surface, why are you buying it in the first place? So for me, one of the attractions of having a control surface is that it's a much more tactile experience. You're literally grabbing a fader and changing the mix with your hands. Likewise, pan pots, rotary pots, whatever, buttons, controllers, all of these give you that sort of hands-on feel of actually controlling your mix. It's very similar feel to the days when we were in 24-track reel-to-reel recording studios. We had big desks and always controllers for the transport bar. It just gets back to that sort of hands-on experience. So that for me is very important. And ever since I've been using DAWs seriously for recording and swapped away from, big Porta Studio type setups, I've always wanted that physical control over my DAW. And closely related to that is focus. And I don't mean what happens when I take my glasses off and I can't see what's going on. I'm talking about the focus of the computer. If you're using any computer program, unless you clicked on it or you've got a function there that says it will always be active. The computer doesn't know what you're doing with your keyboard is actually applying to that particular program, and the same thing is the case with DAWs. So if we have a look on my screen at the moment, I've got my notes up there for things that I need to talk to you lot about. So the focus at the moment is on that piece of document, it's not on Cubase. So if I press the shortcut for play, which is the space bar, all I'm doing is inserting a space into that document. Whereas if I hit the play button on the Qcon, it's just going to play regardless whether it's focused on that or not. Likewise, if I want to go to the mixer, I would normally hit F3, and again, now I've got a stupid error coming up, but if I hit my mixer button on the Qcon, it's there. So focus and muscle memory are greatly assisted by having a MIDI controller. So let's look at this sort of tactile way of working in practice. Just a little example here. So I'm listening to my mix and I'm not maybe overly happy with what's going on one of the tracks, so we'll have a look at the electric guitar. I'm going to grab the insert, so we'll just scroll down to there. I'm going to flip my faders just so that I can use the faders down here instead of the controls up there, and just see what our, so that's the decay. I'm not even really looking at the screen, I just want to listen to what these different things will do. I mean, what does the pre-delay do? It's going to sound a bit odd, so let's put it back in the mix and just try playing around the size, reverb. It's all a bit much really. And that is a good exercise actually. Just close your eyes, have a listen to what's happening, and then just play around with it until you've got it how you want it. Now, another thing you're doing when you're bringing a piece of equipment like this into your studio is you're creating an aesthetic. You're creating something that you feel comfortable with, and actually for the creative process, feeling comfortable with your surroundings is quite important. I've sometimes had to use my studio for other work stuff, and I've had piles of books and bits and pieces all over the place, and it just doesn't feel like my creative space anymore until I've actually removed all of that junk and put it somewhere else. So there is a real element of how you feel about the space that you're working in and how you're controlling the music that you're making. Well, that's the question, isn't it? And I am certainly not going to tell you you should buy one control surface or another. I think the most important thing is to look at the feature set and see the things that are really important to you that you think will aid your workflow. Now, for me, a transport bar is essential. I like a channel strip that has solo, mute, record arm and a select on it, and I also want a motorized fader. So all of those basics are here, and there's an awful lot of other controls that I can get to straight from the surface itself, and I've got a rank of buttons here that I can program my own macros and other shortcuts into. So that for me hits the bill. In the icon range, if you're looking at similar sort of units, then the G2 has a very similar setup. It doesn't have the meter bridge along the back, but the meters are alongside the faders, and it gives you the same feature set virtually for less cost than the Qcon Pro X. Other manufacturers in that sort of price range, Behringer X Touch, cheaper actually than the Qcon, and a very good feature set again, so have a look at that one. Very similar sorts of things that it can do. And then you've got the PreSonus fader ports, which come in an 8-channel or a 16-channel version, and the 16-channel has the advantage in that it's a bit more compact, so it probably doesn't take up much more space than the Qcon Pro X, just itself. And you've got again similar sorts of feature sets. Check out Chris Selim's videos on that particular unit. The only thing I've heard about that is that the faders might be a little bit close together, so if you've got big clunky hands you might find it a little bit irritating, but otherwise looks really good. If you're going up the scale to probably the most expensive that you're likely to be looking at for home studio basic setup, then the new UF8 from SSL that's just come out is getting very good reviews. It's well built apparently and has a very good feature set. Thing that steered me away from that was that it doesn't have a dedicated transport bar. You can use some of the buttons which are stuck at the back of the unit as a transport facility if you're in the right part of the menu for those particular buttons, because they're multifunction. But I actually, I think I would have rather had a dedicated transport bar on that if I'm going to be paying £1,000. So, but anyway, have a look at it. It does look very impressive. And if you're after cheap as chips, then the Korg Nano Control 2, you can't beat it. Passive faders, but you've got all of the basic features you need for a controller. I use it almost solely for programming my own shortcuts into the buttons, so that I've got everything at hand that I want to grab, and that's nicely tucked away on my desk and really useful. So a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Hope that was useful. I will probably direct everybody that asks me these questions to this video now rather than giving rambling answers. But if you've got any other specifics, then let me know. Have you got a door controller of that I haven't mentioned that you think's really worth having a look at? Please share it, because other people will find that useful. So I'll see you on the next one, and I hope you enjoy making your music.